G'day, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Swordplay GDS NBL podcast. Just the two of us today. Our brother Verns can't make it, but we'll touch on it a little bit. Had a big week in the Contender League in GDS. But, Boz, how have you been, mate? A lot of basketball going on, NBL, NBA. How's your last week been, brother?
Yeah, DR, week's been good. Always nice to catch up on the podcast and talk some NBL. And to be honest, I think most of my attention shifted to the NBA. Really enjoying that, especially having it back on Supercoach under the classic format. But, still watching my NBL, still making sure I'm getting my team lineups in and still making sure I can provide some good content for those that listen.
Beautiful, mate. Now, Little Birdie told me that you actually went to an NBL match this week. How's the experience, mate, and who'd you watch?
Yeah. Got down on Sunday afternoon to watch Sem and Perth. Just a couple of mates of mine that I play basketball with on a Sunday night. We had a week off because of cut week, and they would just put the feelers out. Do you want to go watch the NBL? And I was like, of course, no worries. And yeah, it was awesome. They love the atmosphere. Sem, Perth put up a really good performance. Like we were hoping it was going to go to overtime, but unfortunately, Perth couldn't really kind of claw their way back in that last minute of the game. And yeah, just really impressive performance from Southeast Melbourne, who continue to win games, and Sobe continues to play really well, which is not something that I like to see every week. But no, I can't credit him enough. He's pretty much put that team on his back along with Foxwell and a couple of other guys. And yeah, they're a real team. Like they're such a good team, and they're all there to play for each other. I don't think they care. Southeast Melbourne, who ends up scoring each and every week, as long as they're getting the wins, unlike maybe some other teams where a couple of guys are making sure that they're getting theirs, but their teams aren't doing too well. But yeah, had a really, really enjoyable time on Sunday at the NBL. So can only recommend it to everyone that they get out and see as many games as they can to support it.
Beautiful, mate. And there's always something to do, isn't it? Even during the timeouts, the dancers come out, they got the music playing. Really good for the kids as well. So I highly recommend it as well, brother. But let's start off with talking about how we did this week. Now, for me, mate, it was not fantastic. A couple of 40s. So 42nd in starter and 42nd in contender as well. And way back in 70th place for classic. So not my week. How about yourself, Boz? Any good in the weekly rankings?
Overall, not great. Maybe a touch better than yourself, DR, but very similar. I didn't post in the top 20 for all three of my leagues that I was in. I had a 23rd in Classic, and then my contender and starter ranks were out towards the late 30s to 40s. So, what's great, I think, is a lot more people are playing. I think a lot more people are paying attention to it. It's a lot harder to get a top 10 finish now. And to be honest, even though I was ranking in the 20s and 30s, I only like 30 to 40 points off, which can literally be one or two players different. So it's just a matter of having that week where you pretty much get lucky and all your guys go off. Because to be honest, I don't really think I had a bad selection this week. I was watching the games and thinking to myself, great, had KD in my team, great, had PJC, great, had Drew Little. They all went great, but there was just one or two players that I didn't have that went a little bit better for some other people. And I'm sure we'll talk about them a little bit later.
Yeah, one player in particular, a bit of a late in that absolutely slammed those that didn't select him, mate. So we'll talk about him in a little bit. But look, I mentioned before that Verns had a really, really solid week. It was his week 3rd in contender for the great man. So prize packs will be out shortly. Cannot wait to hear what he manages to get himself for that. We had Janath in 13th in the contender as well for the week. And another congrats to Mel's Misfits, who's a mate of ours on Twitter. I think it might have been the top 20 finish, the first top 20 finish for Mel as well. And that was in Classic. So congratulations to Mel there. And then the seasonal rankings. Janath, this man, he absolutely sickens me, Boz. Now, this is the seasonal rankings here. 12th in starter, 7th in contender, and 3rd in Classic. It's just, it sickens me, I'll be honest. But yourself, Boz, currently 17th in contender for the season as well. So sitting in the top 20 yourself, and I think I'm about 23rd in starter. So my aim is to try to finish in the top 20 there. But what do you think is a realistic goal for you in contender? You're thinking top 10, top 5, maybe go all the way? Still a lot left in the season.
Yeah, well, I haven't played GDS before this season, so I'm not really sure, in terms of how easy it is to claw back a ranking, let's say. So, if I'm hearing that I'm in 17th, I'd like to think I can crack the top 10. I think that'll be definitely a kind of realistic goal to try and measure myself on. And I think each and every week, if funnily enough, that's the last team I field every week. I always field my starter team and my classic team because I have some decent golds and silvers. And then I kind of figure out what do I have remaining to then fill my contender team. And funny enough, that's the one I'm doing best at. So maybe I should start putting all my energy into fielding a good team for the contender one. But really, really keen to see if I can get into that top 10, I think.
Beautiful, mate. Love it. So, look, we're going to continue the way we've been going the last few weeks and start off with some quick fire team reviews. And we're going to start with Tassie here, mate. So 84-95 Perth lost there, and then 69-75 versus the Taipans. So, things aren't going overly well when you are losing to Cairns, but we had Hamilton 45, Bannon 43. They were the standouts in game one. In game two, Hamilton really stepped it up with a 65, Bannon the 33, and Tiger, he's been a little bit up and down with his scoring, but what can you give us for the quick fire review for Tassie, my friend?
Well, it was good to see Hamilton bounce back. Not that he's needed to bounce back because, they've been winning games and they've been getting close in most of their games. So they're a bit like United Tasmania in the sense that they just want to win the game. They don't really care each and every week who is there to do that for them. So, if there's better matchups to put on the court and Hamilton isn't playing well, then Scott Roth isn't going to be, scared to pull him and put him on the bench or not have him play those minutes. But yeah, it was really good to see him on a back-to-back or double game week kind of just show that he's still that import. He's the man. He's the one getting paid the big bucks and, put out some really good GDS points. And I think if for whatever reason you started Hamilton, I think most of us would have probably had Tyler Harvey in that second spot. There probably is the difference in some of these kind of finishes this week. And we look forward, Tassie have another 2-game week this week, and I wouldn't be against you putting Hamilton in your team if you wanted to look for a bit of a pod option. And both games for Tassie are at home. And I don't look too much into it, as I say, but I think it's important to know. It's good to know that they're not traveling, they're staying at home, they sleep in their own beds or wherever they are. So they're just more comfortable. And I think that just enables them to kind of get up and ready for that second game. So, yeah, Hamilton looks to be another solid pick this week. If you want to kind of go against the grain, because I think most people will pick Cotton and then maybe there'll be that umming and ahhing over Hamilton, Tyler Harvey, even Will Hickey, who's come back and put up a monster score for Illawarra on the weekend. But yeah, Tassie, a lot of mouths to feed, but I think Hamilton's the one you can trust. And then even Josh Bannon, he's been pretty consistent over the last couple of weeks. So I'd be not disappointed if you were to try to pick him as maybe your second power forward in one of your lineups.
Love it, mate. So Hamilton back on the radar. Now let's talk about Cairns. Now we've been saying poor old Cairns for the last little while now, but let's be honest, the big news here is the return of one Jack McVeigh, a 72 in game one, followed by a 53 in game two. Andrew Andrews was the second highest scorer in both games as well, with a 54 and a 38. I unpacked a gold of him last week in my prize pack, so pretty handy one there for me. What else is it? It's Jack McVeigh, isn't it, mate? That's where all the big news is at here.
Yeah, well, Jack McVeigh was the kind of, not a late in, but I guess I'd already had my team lineup set, and I'm not one to kind of make too many last-minute moves. And I did see on Twitter maybe like an hour and a half before the game that, he was suiting up. And I kind of thought to myself, is there any point? Like, I think I already had someone play in my power forward spot. And then I had Cooks, and I was kind of like, I'm just going to roll with Cooks, which ended up being not too bad because he ended up scoring, I think, a 60-odd. But again, there's 12 points that could have gone begging if I did make that move. And I think a couple of people, especially on the Discord, I noticed a few people did pick Jack McVeigh. And I think it's those people that are kind of, willing to back themselves in and put in that pod pick that maybe not many people were thinking they can reap the rewards week in, week out. And I think with McVeigh, it was just, he loves basketball. It's as simple as that. And he's been out for so long that he was just so keen to get back in there. And when he did not disappoint. So scoring, assisting, rebounding, doing all the things he was doing at the start of the season, but also minus the turnovers. So that knocking him in the early rounds was he was turning the ball over too much. But I think I didn't watch these games of Cairns over the weekend, I'll be honest, but it looks more like Andrew Adams maybe had the ball in his hand a lot more. And then Jack McVeigh kind of played off the ball, meaning that he wasn't kind of, turning it over as much as what he would if he was that primary ball handler. And just lastly, yeah, Andrew Adams, you packed the gold. I packed the diamond, I think, or the platinum, one of the two in my packs. And nice. Someone, I can't remember the person's name, but they posted on the comments of the video of last week's potty saying, I think it's a sign, Boz, you should play him. didn't even see that comment until I went back and looked at it kind of after the game week. One of the boys on Discord kind of tagged me and said, Boz, did you play Andrew Adams? And I was like, no, of course not. But maybe I should have, because he would have been an awesome pick. I mean, I think PJC and Kendrick Davis still outscored him, but that would have been a cool little pod to have in the team as well. Moving forward, do we pick him? Probably not. Probably Jack McVeigh's your only option. And then Sam Wardenberg, once he comes back and starts getting some consistent minutes. And by all reports, he might be coming back in the next round-ish. So, yeah, he could be another one we start looking at. So Cairns may become a bit more relevant as the week goes on. They do have a double game week. No, they don't actually. I apologize. They have a single game week this week against Illawarra. So, interesting one. Maybe go with the McVeigh because maybe others will look to some players that might have a double game week.
Beautiful summary once again, mate. And we can see the bullets here. So, obviously, against Cairns, in the end, lost 79-116 against the Kings. So, got an absolute shellacking there. Adams went bang with a 62, with the usual prospects, Prather and Harrison having solid games. And then they got demolished, as I said, by the Kings here. Adams almost halved his score. Consistency's been an issue with Jalen Adams, hasn't it, Boz? And then Prather and Harrison both had solid games again. But are these really the big three here that we need to be considering from week to week?
Yeah, I don't think you go anywhere else, to be honest. Adams is still coming off the bench, and I think it's kind of working in their favour. They've won a few more games. He's obviously scoring better, more consistently. I think he's tidied up his game a little bit in terms of the sloppy turnovers and fouls. So that's good to see for Jalen Adams. Prather is just the beam of consistency. He'll just do the exact same week in, week out. You know what you're going to get. Harrison was a bit disappointing this week. I think the second center position was a little bit disappointing this week. You know, McGee was the obvious one to pick. And then there was like a JLA, Harrison. I went with Harrison in all three comps, just hoping, just praying that he outscored JLA, and it ended up just being a bit of a kind of, tied game. It was someone like a Tim Suarez or something like that actually ended up being the second highest center for the week. And fair play to you if you had Suarez in your center position. But yeah, with Brisbane, it's just those three. There's no point looking elsewhere and trying to overcomplicate things.
Yep, love it, mate. And I actually got my hands on a Prather Platinum. I ended up purchasing this one, but it was $2.50. So I thought that was a pretty nice buy at $2.50 when you take a look at how much the packs are. So I end up going that way this week, and also got a Harrison Platinum as well. So I think putting those two together might be a nice combination on certain weeks, mate. Alrighty, next team up is the Sydney Kings, and they lost to United by 3 in their other game, but 4 players went 50 plus. You had Suarez, you mentioned, Cooks, Galloway, and KD. In game 2, KD top scored with a 62. We had Quoll with a 56 and Cooks with a 42. So a pretty high scoring round from the Sydney Kings, mate.
Yeah, well, just as you mentioned, I think they actually beat United by 3. So they were the team that actually ended
United. You're right.
Yeah, but they were finally they've ended the United winning streak, which was nice to see, because United are just so good each and every year, and it's nice to see that they can be beaten, and they do have an Achilles heel. But with Sydney, look, there's a couple of guys that they're slowly coming into relevance, but unfortunately for one of them, so Bull Quolls, who I'm talking about, just the position that he plays, shooting guard, is just not good enough in GDS consistently. Like, you have those options that are better than him in the Bryce Cotton, the Bryce Hamilton, the Tyler Harvey, the Nathan Sobey. He's so far down the rung, you're not ever going to kind of pick him. But even last week, he's playing much more consistently. He's shooting a lot better, and he's actually getting a lot of defensive stats. And we know that defensive stats get you a lot of points in this format. But yeah, Kendrick Davis, I think over the last 3 weeks has finally settled in as that starting point guard. I think they've figured it out that whilst Daly is a really good facilitator, I think the ball needs to be with Kendrick Davis the majority of the time if they do want to win, because his creation is a bit better in terms that he can create his own shot while actually facilitating. Whereas Daly, yes, he can create his own shot, but I just don't think he does it as consistent as what Kendrick Davis does. Cooks continues to be a frustrating pick. He's someone that I will continue to play because I know his pedigree, a former MVP of the league, and he's shown that his ceiling is still high. He's still scored a couple of weeks in a row in the 60s. It's just that he's not doing it for both games. Daly's someone, again, he's just not good enough. Like, you're always picking PJC, your Kendrick Davis, etc. And then Jalen Galloway, he's an interesting one. Like, we know how thin the small forward position is. And if Prather, for whatever reason, gets injured during the season, we've just had Windler out for a couple of weeks. he can be that kind of third, fourth option, maybe not as good as Cheatham, but you could potentially be rolling him out in teams. And I actually, in my classic team, was forced to play him because I only actually have Prather, Windler cards, or Galloway cards, because I only have 2 Cheathams that I always play in starter and contender. So I was actually forced to play a silver Galloway this week, which ended up working out well because one of the games he went off for like 55, which was awesome. But I just don't think he'll get that each and every week. So you just got to be careful around him. But yeah, Sydney do have a couple more options than what we might have thought at the start of the year. And also, yeah, Tim Suarez, shout out to him. He's been not scoring 60s every week, but he did put up a 60 in one game. But then as you see here against United, he's only putting up a 22. So, on a single game week, you're not trusting that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you touch on it before, there's sometimes one player that can make all the difference. So if you're playing Suarez in that centre position, when we've got some of the lowest scores from some of the guns this week, that could really be enough to really send into that top 10, same as playing someone like a Jack McVeigh. So really good point there. And I also like the fact that you touched on, you need to have more than just the stars, because when the stars go down, you obviously need those replacement options to come on field. So I like that shout, mate. Make sure that you keep onto those cards. Don't trade them all away, because there may come a week or two where they actually come on field for you, or you're forced to play them on field for some reason, and they'll become absolute gold for you. So really, really good shout there, mate. With United, only the single game week, we had Walker step up with a 56. He's been a little bit up and down this season. Edwards with a 42. And then Doyle with a 29. But Walker looking pretty good. I traded the gold card of his the other week for a Harrison Platinum. I'm not sure if I've won out there or not, because he is looking pretty nice at the moment, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, well, a really good, just traditional point guard that, doesn't really have to score, good assist numbers, usually a good defensive stats. So defensive stats guy usually gets a decent amount of steals. I don't think he got one in this game. But yeah, he's someone that, it's tough because you speak about it every week. We just know how in each and every game United don't care how they win. They're the biggest team like that. Like if Jesse Edwards is playing well, then they'll feed him. If they need Doyle to do a lot more, he'll do a lot more. However, I think what we've seen in the data showing that I think their highest averaging scorer player is Walker, which tells me that he's the one that consistently, or more consistently than others, is having these bigger games. Now, Shea Illy is still not returned, and I haven't had an update on him, but he's been out for about 3 or 4 weeks now with a hammy. So he would be coming back shortly. And I just know that at the start of the season when he was fit, they were playing Dash Daniels, they were playing Walker, they were playing Illy, they were playing Krebs, they were playing Goulding. There's a lot of those kind of point guard, shooting guard type players that I'm sure they'll just keep rotating and rotating. So I guess while Illy's out, feel free to maybe pod play a Walker, or if you have a gold or a platinum Walker, throw him into a classic team or a challenger side. But I just don't think for that starter and contender, you're looking anywhere else than PJC and Kendrick Davis every week, to be honest.
Great advice, mate. Wonderful advice. And that's where you need to be right up to speed with what's happening with injuries and roles, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, as soon as Illy comes back, maybe his minutes may come down a little bit. So that's really important to make sure you're right on top of that sort of stuff, mate. Love it. All right, we're now on to the Wildcats. You can see Doolittle here, mate, with a 68. So he's again been one that's been a little bit up and down and hard to rely on. But JLA 42 in game 1, Doolittle with 36. Game 2, they lost to Sam here by 5. But JLA with a low 26. And Doolittle, as we can see, went bang with that 68. So they're probably the main 2 blokes that we look at week to week. Is there anyone else that you think's worth a bit of a shout here at all, Boz?
Well, I went to this game, so I can give a bit of a comprehensive breakdown on it. Doolittle is someone that is so good. And when I was watching it, and I didn't look at the stats the whole game until the end because I wanted to kind of hang out with my mates and make sure I wasn't being too addicted to the form, to the app the whole time. But I knew he played well, but I did not know he played this well. And that's not a knock on him. The thing was, he just kept doing weird turnovers. There were 2 instances. So he had 5 turnovers in this game. This score should have been bigger. 2 instances where he had open shots, like open threes to take, and he decided to, at the last minute, try to pass it to someone that wasn't even looking. I think it was JLA both of the time. So maybe he was just trying to get him more involved. But it was just brainless, like silly. So I kind of came out of that game being like, I reckon he's played really well, but I don't reckon he scored over 50. And then I realized that, oh my God, he actually had I think it was a 13 rebounds, 6 assists. So I think they're finally realizing that he's actually probably the best player on their team in terms of being a team player. He's the one that can score at will, because in this game, every time he went inside, he was scoring. It was just when he was going inside. So I think he's finally worked out that I can be aggressive every game and put up some really big numbers for this team. He is someone I'm actually quite confident in now, even though they've signed a new import point guard, even though Dylan Windler's back from injury. I'm still very confident now that Doolittle will know his role. I know at the start of the season, it looked like he was the fourth option and he was the one that wasn't doing much. But I think now Doolittle is at least second in line, even over Windler, to be honest. So he played a really good game, even though it didn't look like it by the eye. Jaron really had a really good game, but again, he's not got someone you're going to pick. JLA is interesting. As the game ended, you know how they traditionally line up and do their little handshake line? JLA was straight out of there. Did not shake hands, left straight away. Not sure if that was due to coaching, maybe the coaching. He was frustrated with the coaching, maybe not playing him as much. I think more likely was that he played not very well. He didn't put up as big a numbers as he usually does. I think he was a bit kind of maybe internally frustrated. But that was one thing we saw. We were sitting right kind of in the corner where the players come in and out. And as soon as the siren went, he just left. Didn't even shake a single person's hand. So he's frustrated about something. I don't know what it is, and I will never kind of question or try to make up rumors about what it is. But I can only hope that it's maybe just an internal thing that he's pretty frustrated with the way he played. Even after the game when Perth, they were stretching out on the court, JLA was nowhere to be seen. He was still inside the change room. So hopefully this is a good motivating factor, and hopefully if you are someone that kind of wants to back him in this week, he comes out and has a massive game when they verse Adelaide on Sunday. Now, with Windler, he was fine. I think what you wanted to see from Windler was, after his injury, how's he looking out there? Is he playing minutes? Look, he was rebounding really well. He played the minutes. The only thing was he was fouling a bit silly as well, just some silly fouls. And also, he didn't have his legs. You could tell he was still kind of working out how to kind of land on that ankle, and some of his jump shots were falling short. So, give him a couple of games and I think he gets back to his best, to be honest. And then David Aquera filled in really well. David Duke Jr., who is their new import, he played okay, but he fouled out. So if that's continuing to be a thing, I wouldn't think he'd be a good option, as he'd lose points every week via fouls. But he looked quite smooth on the court. So I think he can actually be quite a handy player for their team, but maybe not GDS. But yeah, Perth have some still relevant options.
Love the summary, mate. And good to see Windler. He'll be better for the run. And I think JLA has very, very high standards of himself. And I expect him to absolutely go bang and really make up for that lower game, mate. Now, let's move on to Sem. We had 4 out of the top 5 scorers actually being Sem players. So Lewis with a 57, Foxwell with a 56, and he's had some pretty good games this season as well. John Brown found some form again, up to a 44. Sobey, you talked about him before, with a nice 42. So what did you notice about the way Sem went about their business, mate?
Well, Owen Foxwell stood out. He was the one that, for me, watching the game, and even my mates were like, oh my God, is that Owen Foxwell? He's improved, because he used to play in the NBL 1 for where kind of we grew up in Eltham, so that kind of area of Victoria. And he played with Angus Glover, funnily enough, a couple of seasons back. So we kind of knew them from playing in the NBL 1, and they were shocked at how good he was playing. So, yeah, Owen Foxwell, he's just not consistent enough. He's just not someone that does it week in, week out, unfortunately. It's really good when he does, but it's just not coming as frequent. So I guess on a double game week, if you wanted to get Poddy at the point guard, I wouldn't recommend it, because we know how good the options are at point guard already. But he was what really stood out. Really efficient, was such a confident finisher. Like, he was in the clutch, getting the ball from 3 and just putting up shots from all angles and pretty much hitting them all. Malik Lewis had a really good game. Again, he doesn't put up these types of GDS scores too often, so I think that's just a bit of a one-off for him. John Brown, played a little bit better. Low turnovers, low fouls this time. He was really conscious of biting his tongue around the refs, I noticed at times, when things might have not gone his way. Hit a couple of threes, though. That's something he hasn't done this season. He hit a buzzer beater 3 and another 3. If he starts doing that more consistently, then I guess we can maybe start to talk about him more in that powerful position. And then Sobey was super consistent. It was the 4 turnovers and 3 fouls that really ruined his score. He was on track for a 60. And at the start of the game, he hit the first 8 points for them, just pulling up from 30 feet out. Like the first play, he just literally won the tip, rolled up, pulled it up, smack, bang, score. He's just oozing confidence at the moment this season. So I think Sobi's shot up to, definitely one of the top 3 selections each and every week for that shooting guard position.
Beautiful, mate. No better summary than the eye test itself. So it seems like a pretty entertaining game, mate. So love it, Boz. All right, now on to your boys, the Breakers. Now, only a single game week, but the man up the top did Verns a big favour because we talked about it before. Again, one player can make a fair difference. And he actually had Karim Lopez on field in contender this week. He top scored with a 61. PJC, again, model of consistency with a 53. And then we had Baker, Brockington, and then Menenga all rounding out the top scorers. So the 5 top scorers in this game, all your boys, all Breakers, boss.
Yeah, I didn't actually see this game, and I was quite shocked. I had a Halloween party Friday night, and I kind of, again, didn't check the phone, and then opened the phone at about 1 a.m. and I was like, I know I was a bit pissy, but I was like, am I actually reading this 40-point win? That was huge for the Breakers. So, it looks like a couple of guys have played maybe career best games for the Breakers in Rob Baker and even Brockington to a degree. And it's great to see other people kind of potentially putting their hands up to be options. Each and every week, though, I'm not trusting them just yet. And I do think it's that PJC and Menenga that we can trust moving forward. Like Menenga's still scoring a 37 against McGee. That's quite a solid score, to be honest. And good on him for putting up good numbers. What I love about New Zealand winning is it just keeps them in touch. And not because I'm a fan of them, but it's just you need to keep PJC motivated or else things can go wrong. We saw last year when they started losing, he lost his marbles on that Christmas Day game and got suspended and pretty much didn't play for the rest of the season. So we don't want the imports to be missing games. We want as many imports to stick around. And to do that, your team has to be doing well. So hopefully the Breakers can pinch another couple of wins going into the back end of this year to really keep this core group motivated. And then it'll be just easy for us each and every week to pick who we want to pick to score well. PJC, just another great game from the great man.
Love it, mate. Those intangibles as well, as you mentioned. So keeping in touch provides motivation. Really good point there, my brother. Now the Hawks, obviously a big loss here. And McGee was very quiet as well with a 35. Now, for some players, they get a 35. We're jumping on the moon. But for him, no good. But talk about no good. Tyler Harvey, a stinky 11 points. Ouch, that one really hurt. In game 2 versus the 36ers, McGee almost doubled his score, which was nice to see. Harvey got a 29, so a lot better than that 11. But it was Will Hickey that went bananas with a 78.
Yeah, well, I think in this first game, you can probably put some of the low scores down to getting smashed by 40 and probably not playing the best part of the fourth quarter. Now, I haven't looked at the minutes they all played, but I dare say it wouldn't be their regular allotment of minutes. McGee, he can still score really well in low minutes. And I think, and we spoke about it earlier in the season, but when they have back-to-backs, I get a little bit nervous because he is 37, that they're not going to play him to the full capacity. So this kind of was maybe a blessing for the second game. The fact that he probably only played 20 minutes and that enabled him to get adequate rest to then obviously put up a 60 in that second game. Look, Tyler Harvey, the funny thing is when he scored poorly against Southeast Melbourne, they got smashed. But he also had, I think, 6 turnovers. This game, he only had 1, or the game against New Zealand, he only had 1 turnover. So it really was just like his shot wasn't falling and he barely played. Good to see that he improved a little bit, but still it was under 30, and that's not a good score from Tyler Harvey. I think Will Hickey does impact him. I don't think it impacts him as much as what we saw here, but I do think that Will Hickey, being the point guard, is going to definitely soak up the assists from Tyler Harvey. I think Tyler Harvey will still be able to average high teens to 20 points per game. But if he's not getting any more than, let's say, 5 or 6 assists every game, that's really going to kind of cap what his potential is, because that's kind of what was getting him over the line a lot of weeks, having him as pretty much their only kind of shot creator and pretty much assisting McGee on most of his 2-pointers. So it looks like Will Hickey now has obviously the keys to the starting point guard position. They've also signed QJ Peterson, I should say. He didn't play too well in either of these games, but maybe they're just easing him in. He might also take a bit of productivity off Harvey. But the thing we like about Hickey, assists, steals, and blocks for a point guard. They are the 3 highest ways you can score in this format. So if he can continue to do that, we're laughing with Hickey, and I think he'll be a very popular pick this week as Illawarra are on a back-to-back or a 2-game week, and they have Cairns as one of their opponents. So yeah, I wouldn't be against you if you were choosing Hickey as that second shooting guard over like a Sobey or a Hamilton or even a Tyler Harvey.
Love it. I just love the way that Hickey goes about it. He just wears his heart in his sleeve. Desperate second, third, fourth efforts. The junkyard dog, bit of mongrel about him. So I'm a huge fan of Will Hickey. Not the cleanest type player, but just a man that will give his all and someone you'd love to play with as well, I think, mate. All right, we're going to finish off with the 36ers. And surprise, surprise, the top scorer was Bryce Cotton for them with a 65. We also saw Cheatham go 50+ with nice 52, and then a few 30s around the place. But is it really, again, lock in Bryce Cotton each and every week?
Yeah, Bryce Cotton's a no-brainer. I think we'll literally talk to you about him for 5 seconds every week, and it'll just be the same, lock him in. Yep. Cheatham's been really good. So what I'm liking about Cheatham is he's way more aggressive the last 2 weeks. He's scoring now. So at the start of the season, he was getting 6 points and then getting his bunch of rebounds. Whereas the last couple of weeks, he's been getting 14, 16 points, as well as his 12, 13 rebounds. That's really big. And his assists are being boosted at the moment. So I talked about it really early in the season where he pretty much gets the ball at the top of the key. He'll give it off to Cotton on the fly, set a screen for Cotton, and Cotton shoots it immediately. So he's not really facilitating in the sense that he's passing it around. All he's doing is just laying it off to Cotton. But Cotton's put himself in a position where he's going to shoot straight away, which means it counts as an assist. And players like Cheatham, and I think it was even who's the young Kiwi boy that plays for Adelaide, has escaped, Flynn Cameron. Even he was getting himself some good assist numbers early in the season because of that kind of pick and roll action with Bryce Cotton. So pretty much whoever's giving Bryce Cotton a good screen in a game is pretty much going to get a couple of assists because they'll just lay it off, set the screen, Cotton shoots, Cotton scores, and they get the assist there. So Cheatham's really kind of found his fit at Adelaide now, and I'm really bullish on what he can do now for the rest of the season because they're a really good side, Adelaide.
Beautiful. Couple of nice options there. So as we said, Bryce Cotton, just lock and load this bloke every week. And Cheatham also looking pretty consistent now. And it's something that you did touch on, Boz. And the concern for him was at the start of the season, a lack of points on the board scoring-wise himself. But now that he's putting some more points in the bucket, it is really raising that floor, I think, and also raising his ceiling as well. And we're seeing some nice consistency from that man. So beautiful, Boz. All teams done and dusted, mate. Now let's take a quick look at the schedule for next week. And we do have some teams. So I'll just refresh that. We do have 4 teams on the single. So that is the Kings, Perth, Cairns, and Brisbane. So every team apart from that does have a double. So I've got the Hawks versus United, the Breakers and the 36ers, Jackies and Phoenix, Taipans and the Hawks, Jackies and the Bullets, Sem versus United, 36ers versus Wildcats, and the Kings versus your boys, the Breakers. So again, 4 teams on the single. Any particular matchups standing out to you this week, brother?
Well, I guess we'll speak about the teams on the double first. So Illawarra in one of their games, I think, has United, which I wouldn't say is the greatest.
Yep.
Yeah, it is at home, albeit, so maybe that bit of chip on the shoulder type thing, want to repay the fans for coming to their 40-point loss. They might play well there, but then they back it up against Cairns. They'll be looking at Cairns to be that game that they can get the win for the week. So that's a nice matchup there. Melbourne have Illawarra, so if you wanted to risk it on a Melbourne player like maybe a Jesse Edwards, they have Illawarra, and then they have the throwdown against Sem, so that'll be a really good contest. We do know that Phoenix give up a little bit to centres. Obviously, JLA didn't go too well against them this week, but someone like Doolittle, who pretty much plays as a tall, scored really well. So maybe a Jesse Edwards could be an option. Again, you'd be really ballsy or gutsy to kind of put him in your team, but it could be something fun you do just as a bit of a pod move. New Zealand haven't got the greatest of matchups. I think they're 1 home, 1 away. I do think they have Adelaide at home, and then I think they have Sydney away. So, look, you're probably not going to overcomplicate things there and just lock in PJC. Adelaide, they probably have a nice matchup, Perth and New Zealand. So, Perth at home, and then obviously New Zealand earlier away. Bryce Cotton and Cheatham are 2 solid options there. You'd expect them to play well in one of those games. Tassie with the 2 home games. So they had Sem, who were pretty restrictive and good defensively. Then they had Bullets, who are pretty much the opposite, both at home. So you could think about playing a Bannon, maybe a Bannon revenge game. That's up against his old side in Brisbane.
Yes.
Maybe he wants to kind of prove them wrong. And then Southeast Melbourne, the other team, they have the double in the Bullets and United. No, sorry, they play United and it's not the Bullets. Jackies away. So you could argue there that Sem might have the hardest double game week. And then I guess in the single games, it's tricky. I like Sydney against New Zealand. I still don't trust New Zealand completely, and it's at Sydney's home, so a KD and a Cook could really play well there. Cairns, I guess, if you're looking into Illawarra's past form, it's not great. They're giving up big scores, which means someone like Jack McVeigh, even though it's a single game, could be someone you look at playing in the power forward position. So yeah, plenty to like, but it's probably the first round where there's a lot of teams that you'd probably like to have players on the double that don't. So for example, Jack McVeigh, yes, he went nuts this week, but I think I'd like to see it for one more week and just want to trust it a little bit. So having him on that single makes me a little bit nervous. I'm just backing him in for one game, as well as Cooks. Like if you're going to play Cooks, it's a single. We know that he's been throwing up some big games at the moment, but he's also been throwing up some pretty poor games. So yeah, it's a tough week to pick. It's to pick players, and those that get it right are going to be the ones that win. And it's going to be interesting to see that, can a McVeigh, can a Cooks, can, maybe even a Kendrick Davis keep continuing on scoring these high scores in the one game they have.
Yeah, good point. It may be one of those weeks where we do see teams start to go a little bit different. I think we've got other weeks where almost our starting 10 is that obvious. And 80% of the people tend to go with most of the same players. But this may be a week where we do see some diverse selections. So a little bit exciting in that respect, Boz. So nice work, mate. We are now going to get to your famous mailbag. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get the slides ready, but we do have some questions from some absolute legends on the screen here. Let's start with Ganners, a great GDS man, a very loyal GDS man. We've got McVeigh on the single game, Cooks on the single, Doolittle on the single, Bannon on the double, Brown on the double. Question is, do we back the doublers, chase matchups, or send up a prayer?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if they were all on 2 game weeks, I'd have it in that order. I'd play McVeigh and Cooks, maybe a Doolittle. Like I really do like Doolittle, to be honest. Maybe I would fit Doolittle in somewhere into one of my teams. But the fact they all have one game, it's like if you go for 2 of these guys and they both put up a stinker, it's really going to ruin your week. So you could look at it, do you get risky with one and try to hit the one that does do well and then play a safer guy like a Bannon who's going to have 2 games? I don't think I trust Brown. He may come out and play really well this week, but I just don't think based on previous form, aside from last week, I trust him. So I think it's out of the 4. And I'd be inclined to maybe play one guy you really like on the single. So for me, this week, if I look at the matchups, probably Cooks. I like him against New Zealand, to be honest, and then maybe a McVeigh. And then I would then think to myself, okay, I'll then lock in my safer play, which might be Bannon, and you hope that one of those games is one of his big rebounding nights where, he puts up 15 points and gets 15 rebounds, and then you get a nice 50 score from him. So, yeah, I would try to kind of spread maybe what you do there. But I'm sure that the person who ends up winning this week will probably pick 2 of McVeigh, Cooks, and Do, and 2 of them will pop off, and they'll have both of them. So, yeah, it's a tough one there.
I like it. It's like you're almost spreading your bet there. So, look, go with one of these single game blokes. Hopefully they pop off, but also have that fallback of the double with someone like a Bannon. So, really nice advice there, Boz. Love it, mate. All right, Fesmond is next. Menenga on the double versus JLA on the single. Now, we talked about it before that JLA didn't have a fantastic match. May have cracked it a little bit, but we don't want to start any rumors here. What are you doing here? Are you backing Menenga on the double? And we've seen some big games from Menenga as well this season, let's not forget. Or are you saying to yourself, JLA's just got to make amends? I'm backing him on the single. Which way do you think you'll go, mate?
I'd be inclined to back JLA. I just think, from what I saw at the end of that Sunday game, something tells me that he was down on himself and really disappointed. So I would personally back JLA because we've seen how good he is pretty consistently, to be honest. I don't think he's put many negative 30 scores up all season. But again, if you've gone risky, let's say in the power forward position, and you might have maybe taken a shot on a single game week elsewhere, another good fallback option would be Menenga. He's probably like that fourth, fifth center that we can trust. And pretty consistently, he's been putting out at least one big score per round when he does have that double. So, look, if you want to be really risky, play JLA for that ceiling. But also, if you want to play it a bit safer, Menenga for sure.
Like it, mate. I'd personally be going JLA. I just find it so hard to see him not sitting in my team and Menenga there. I don't know if it's just a visual thing or a mental thing, but I'm backing JLA myself. Not that it really matters. I'm not the expert here. All right, next one is from Stephen. Which position do you prefer the pod play? Now, we've talked about some positions that seem to be pretty stacked. We know with the center position, we've got a number of options from week to week, just like there before. Menenga, JLA, McGee, Harrison, number of different options there. Suarez even this week went off for the Kings. So I'm not going with the center. I think that's a pretty obvious one. But is there a particular position that really stands out to you week to week, Boz, where you're more comfortable to make that pod play?
Yeah, I guess it's tough though, because we don't see player ownership in this kind of format. It's quite difficult to know who the pod is. So you might think that someone's a pod, but then actually everyone's kind of played him. We'll never really know. So when we say pod, I take it as what line is probably the weakest and where can we maybe make some points up in that line, because we can kind of estimate who most people will be taking. So as you said, in that center position, there's as many as 4 or 5 guys that you can choose every week, and we'll just never know who's getting chosen. I dare say your Menenga and your McGee and JLA are probably your 2 most popular, but there's just so many good options there that I wouldn't think any of them are a pod, to be honest. Whereas in that small forward line, for example, everyone's going to play Prather, and then you can kind of argue that Cheatham and Winlar and even Lopez lately are other options, but that's where I'd be looking. I'd be looking to, can I strike gold somewhere here when you think that the obvious play is for everyone to play Prather and let's say Winlar, but then Cheatham goes off. And there was the example of last week where every single person played, I think it was definitely Prather. And then I think everyone got a bit tricky because this is the week I finished 2nd in Contender and 3rd in Classic. And Cheatham was my pod, it seemed, because I was nowhere near it. And then after the Adelaide game, everyone would have had Cotton. After the Adelaide game, it shot me right up the ranking. So for whatever reason, people were thinking, Cheatham's not scoring. I'm not going to play in that position. I'm going to go for I think people were playing like Lamar Patterson from Brisbane. Some people were putting in, Kareem Lopez, even a Galloway, and they just weren't doing it. And then that Cheatham kind of was that pod for the week. So I think it's about, targeting those weaker lines. So I guess small forward and even power forward lines, and just trying to pick the ones that we don't think everyone's going to be going for.
Love it. And it's a good point that you make. Without being able to see the ownership, it's all a bit of gut feel about who that pod pick may be. So another good one, Boz, absolutely on fire, mate. Izzy has the next question. I think Izzy may be currently top 5 in the season for one of the 3 comps. I'm not too sure. I have to double check that, but absolute legend is Will Hickey now the second best shooting guard option behind Cotton over the likes of Hamilton, Sobey, and Harvey. Have you got that much confidence with Hickey yet, or do you need to see a little bit more consistently from him week upon week?
Yeah, not just yet. I think he definitely has the potential to be, because we know he's a high assist guy, high steals, and even blocks for a guard, and we know the 5s and 4s that we get for those categories. However, we don't know if Harvey is going to have a couple of bounce back games, which then in turn maybe makes Hickey have some down games. So I'd like to see the Hickey-Harvey combo a little bit longer before I make that decision. To be honest, right now, I think Sobey is the second option. He just has no one really taking minutes off him, taking points off him. It does pay me to say it, but I think all credit to him. He's taken that team on his back and he's playing really well. And I really think that Sobey's probably the most consistent second option, aside from Cotton there. Then your Hamilton, he has the best, I guess, role in that Tasmanian team. But as we spoke about earlier in the pod, Tassie just want to win, and I don't care who is on the court to do that. So there are going to be some nights where, unfortunately, we don't get a big score from Hamilton. And that's why I'd have him 3rd. And then, since Will Hickey's come back, I feel like you have to put Harvey and Hickey in that kind of bottom range, just because we need to see a bit more of them working together. For example, last season, I know Trade Carl was there as well, but traditionally all 3 of those guys playing together, that really capped Harvey and Hickey scoring in particular. It was Hickey's time to go off when Trey Carl would be injured. So hopefully maybe that's a sign now that Carl's gone. Hickey might be able to maintain what he was doing when Carl was out. But definitely Harvey, when only, let's say, Carl was out but Hickey was in, Harvey still kind of took a bit of a decrease. I think Harvey needs to be the sole player in that guard rotation to put up those monster scores that we're seeing. So I wouldn't say he's second best just yet, but definitely could be a really cool pod selection in that shooting guard. I mean, I don't think it'd be a pod this week because I think everyone will see that 72 he scored and chuck him straight in. But moving forward, if he has a poor week this week, who's to say that next week he isn't a pod option because everyone kind of reverts back to Hamilton and Sobey. So, yeah, I'd give it an extra week though.
Well, I couldn't. Stephen asked that question before about the pods. Maybe they're two players that you could potentially use as a pod from time to time because the risk is that they may pump out a lower score, but we've both seen from Harvey and Hickey this season, they've also got massive ceilings when they're actually on. So very nice, Izzy and Steve. Thank you very much. Prison Mike. Boz, who is the worst coach and why is it Ford?
Not sure if Prison Mike's a Cairns fan or if he just is sick of Adam Ford. And I'll be honest, and I'm not here to bash anyone, but I've thought this for a few years. I don't get it. I think a lot of the media pumps Adam Ford up because he's this ex-prison guard, has tattoos, but now he's this basketball coach that's kind of like a bit rough on the players and he gets the best out of the team. But does he really? They're no good every year. They're no good. They have been struck with injuries. I understand that. They're a small market team that probably don't get the best of the best imports. But there was a season a couple of years back where they had Taj McCall and they had Paddy Miller, who were just awesome. And they were dominating in the league stats-wise. They had Wardenberg still, but the team still didn't make the playoffs. So I don't know. I don't really – I'm sure he's an awesome coach. I'm sure he's a great person. He seems like he is. But when you're losing most weeks, and some of these games you're losing by 35, 40 points plus, it's a professional sport, right? There needs to start being questions based around maybe it doesn't really matter how many injuries we have or who's actually on the roster. You know, is this guy the best fit for us? And if we remember back to the end of the last season, he actually wasn't their coach. He left. They got rid of him. But then they just couldn't find a replacement that they liked, and then they got him back. So I was really kind of keen to see how Cairns, we're going to go about this season without him. They got him back. He's familiar. I'm sure they love him internally, but I think Mike's got a bit of a point. I don't think he's doing great results-wise. I'm sure he's making them better individuals and players, but it's not really working out in the wins department, is it?
It's a good point, mate. And it's usually a very results-orientated type business, isn't it? So maybe on shaky ice, Prison Mike, maybe on shaky ice. All right, the last one, mate, is from another regular watcher of the channel, another legend, Dan's Dynamos. His question is, what dollar valuation would you give for a Will Hickey prize card? Now, I've just looked at the playlist here. Not currently a prize card up, but the most expensive card I can currently see is a diamond here. Ben a long time is the seller. He's asking $25. Sam McKinnon says I'll outdo that with $19.99 for the same card. We've also got a $37.50 here. So at the moment, you're getting a diamond for $20 at the cheapest. Based off that, Boz, have you got some sort of an estimation or a guess about what a special may be worth?
I'm glad you give me that information because when I read this question earlier, I was kind of just going to throw it to you because I don't really have much of an idea about the market. It's something I haven't really tapped into on GDS thus far. And I'm also not playing in those competitions that kind of allow you to play those big dog cards. So I really don't know the market value of some of these. But if you're telling me that you're playing, let's say, what is it? That's a platinum or a diamond, sorry, and it's going for around, let's say, $20 on average. Is a prize card, how much is the multiplier?
Now, all right, let's look at a prize card. So I'll just get Hickey off the screen and we'll look at the old special cards here. So a KD would be 1.35 multiplier. But I think we can use that the same as a gold from memory, which will be a 1.2. So that's a big advantage here, Boz. You can use a prize card with the same salary cap amount as one of our gold cards. So you can see that we've got 111 for Cotton, 88 for a KD, and then 65 for a PJC. Based off that, what are we saying Hickey's worth? Is around the $25 mark?
Maybe a touch higher. I mean, if the market's saying that the platinum's worth, or the diamond, sorry, is worth that, I think it's only fair that this is a little bit more expensive just due to the ability of playing it as a gold card, which I think is really cool. I'd love to get my hands on one of these. The fact that PJC's around that kind of 60 to 70 mark, I reckon Hickey's probably $45, because I still think that's it's a little bit of a thin position, that shooting guard. And if you think about moving in the future, I'm thinking like a dynasty prospect, I don't think Hickey plays in Europe or in America. I think he's already kind of in his mid-20s. I don't see him moving from the NBL. I mean, he might to chase a bit of money if that's something he's kind of motivated by, but he looks like someone that might play in the league for numerous years. So if you're thinking down the track, you can hold on to him. And we've spoken about how we like his stat set in terms of assists, steals, and blocks for a guard. So yeah, I think $45. If you can get him cheaper than that, that's probably a bit of a steal in my opinion. But yeah, I just don't know that knowledge of the market. So yeah, I would say around $40. I'll give you a number. There you go, $40.
Very nice. And I like the fact that you did mention that dynasty selection element to it as well, because if you buy the card this year, you can continue to use it next year, the year after. And particular players, we do run the risk of them not returning to the NBL, playing over in different leagues. But for players like Will Hickey, if we are predicting that he will be sticking around for a while, and I think that actually ups the value of that card as well. So love your work there, Boz. Now, did you want to finish off with potentially talking about who we're going to select in our squads this week, or any other topics you wanted to touch on, mate, before we say goodbye to the viewers?
No, let's go straight into our teams, get that done in 5, and we can wrap things up under an hour.
Beautiful, mate. Well, I must admit, looking at my teams, I have not made any changes so far. So I will absolutely do it in the next hour or two, but my team from last week in the starter was Cooks, JLA, Cheatham, KD, Cotton, Prather Doolittle, PJC, JaVale McGee, and the man that let us down, Tyler Harvey. So probably look to get Harvey out of the side there, but not a heap of other changes I'll personally be looking to make, mate. How about yourself? Have you been playing around with your squads during the podcast or before, or are you still got a bit of work to do on preparing for this week, brother?
No, I've made my teams this morning. Had a bit of, obviously, public holiday, Melbourne Cup for us living in Melbourne. So I had the time to just kind of sit with a coffee and look into the teams for tomorrow's round that's starting. And look, with your team, DR, you're right. You're not going to really change much there. I think you're pretty much backing in all those players, and then maybe, moving on from Harvey and maybe risking it with a Hickey or going somewhere else. But yeah, that's a super solid starter team. With my side, do you want me to share my screen now?
Yep, let's do it, mate.
Beautiful. At the moment, I've kind of spoken about it on the podcast about going for maybe a pod option, or kind of, going for someone that you may not usually go for. At the moment, and it's not set in stone just yet, but I was playing around this morning and just thinking, because I said to myself, I'd pretty much put out a very strong team this week, and it just didn't get me anywhere. I still finished 30th, I think, in starter. So for me, it was kind of like everyone's going to be playing the same 8 to 9 guys, and we've got to kind of differentiate ourselves somehow. So I just kind of had the idea of let's just go a little bit potty in some positions. So
nice.
Went with McVeigh. Just hopefully he continues that good form. Kansas only on a single, but I think against Illawarra at home, hopefully that pays off. Your Prather, your PJC, your Cotton, your McGee are all just locks that everyone will have.
Yeah.
Cheatham and Doolittle, I think, as well, and KD. And here's where I got a little bit tricky.
Ooh,
so for some reason I have Jesse Edwards, and there's nothing to back this up. It's just based on, I've already got a single game week player in McVeigh. I've already got a single game week player in Doolittle. I do think JLA will still score big, but I'm just thinking for a little bit of safety, if one of these guys does not perform well, just to maybe get an extra look at Jesse Edwards. Now, they've got Sem, who in the past have given up big scores to centres, and they also have Illawarra. Now, I think they'll want him to match up a lot of the time against JaVale McGee because he's such a big fella. So I see him, if he's not in foul trouble, I see Edwards playing some decent minutes. And then against Sem, it's a throwdown. No Melbourne team wants to lose a throwdown. So I do expect him as well to play some big minutes as well, all being he doesn't get in foul trouble. I think that's the knock with Edwards. When he gets in foul trouble, he gets those low scores. But when he doesn't, and you get a few blocks and a few offensive rebounds, he can put up some big scores. So maybe I'm overthinking things, but I'm thinking Edwards. And then Hickey. Look, I pretty much just said not to trust him as a second option, but here I am having him. The only thing is I don't have Sobey. So if I had Sobey, I would put Sobey in here. I don't have a bronze Sobey. I only have a gold Sobey, funnily enough.
Okay.
I'm not desperate for it. I'm happy to kind of be risky here. So I think I'll just kind of, maybe see if Hickey can provide me with some, provide me with a better game again this week. Now, I think I have to refresh my page. So
it doesn't want you to share the contender squad, does it there?
Must be too good that I don't want the people to see at home.
Don't want to give all the secrets away. Here we go.
So with my contender team, I've gone for the tried and tested guys being the Silvers. So I've gone with Prather, Mr. Consistent, PJC, Cotton, McGee, all on doubles as well, by the way. Sorry, not Prather, but I just don't see anyone scoring higher than him. And then Kendrick Davis as well. And then I've filled out the bronzes with Cooks, who I didn't have in my starter team. Cheatham again, Doolittle again, who I trust. I've gone JLA here. So I am ranked decently in contender at 17. So maybe I can take an extra punt that he actually goes well on the single game week for Perth. So even if Doolittle played terribly and JLA, it won't hurt me too bad. And again, just because I do have Bryce Hamilton, who I could play here, but just because I don't have anyone else that I really like aside from Cotton, I'm happy to play Will Hickey again and just kind of ride my starter and contender week on his back. Lastly, in the contender, so the team I like to do first, because I do like to kind of try and score big because I have a fair amount of gold cards. It's all the tried and tested guys with the golds. Cook's probably the only one here that I'm umming and ahhing about. Like, he could put out a 20 and then that ruins the multiplier. Like, it's going nowhere. But I'm going to back him in and say that he had a really good game against Melbourne, so he'll do that again against New Zealand. And then on my bench in the Silvers, I've gotten Windler. I think that was purely because I don't have only have 2 bronze Cheatham cards, so I don't have anyone else but Windler to play. And that's why I had to play Jalen Galloway last week because Windler was injured. Doolittle, really happy to play his silver. Unfortunately, I don't have an extra KD card, but I'm lucky enough to have an Adams card. So each week, Adams has been my second point guard. And look, most of the time he puts up at least one decent score. The only scare this week is it's a single game week. Is he going to give me that good game or that bad game? I don't really mind. We'll see how he goes. McGee, no-brainer with the silver there on the double. And then Tyler Harvey silver. So what I'm thinking, I may slide Cooks down to a silver and then play a gold Sobey just because I don't think I trust.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I fully trust Tyler Harvey at the moment. And that would be a really pretty terrible way to lose my week. So I might slide Cooks down to a silver and then get a Sobey gold in. Or if I don't know if I even have a Cook silver. Because if I don't, I know what I can do. I know I do. All good.
Beautiful.
All good. What I'll do is that, and then I'll probably, now that I look at it, I just don't want to hedge my bets too much. That's removed, but there we go. And I'll probably roll my gold Sobey, I reckon, and that will just make me a little bit safer, I think.
I like that, mate.
I reckon that's probably a smarter thing. Although the only thing, and I think when I made the team, the one thing I was saying was Sam probably have the hardest double game week in the sense they have United, who are obviously pretty much have always had their measure. And then they've also got Tasmania away, I think it was. So it just could be a little bit of a defensive / slower week for Sem. But I'm willing to gamble on one of those games that Sobey does play really well because I can't knock his form, to be honest, over the last few weeks.
Mate, very, very impressive. And as I said, I don't mind that last-minute change there. The good thing is you've got options. You have options up your sleeve. And I like the way that you're thinking about things, mate, thinking about strategy, thinking about matchups, recent form. Cannot fault any of your squads this week, brother. Mate, we are done. Just a tick over an hour. Cannot thank you enough for your wisdom and knowledge each and every week, mate. Thanks again. What do you got to finish this off with, mate? Any great advice? Normally I throw to Verns for a Shakespeare-type quote here, but keeping it simple this week, mate.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple and just plug my socials. So just get on Twitter and follow me at SCBoz. I'm posting a lot of NBA stuff, kind of daily things on that format there. Not so much NBL GDS content, but yeah, I've been getting a few followers over the last week or two, which I'm really happy about. So feel free to follow me there. And if you're in the Discord for GDS, that's what I would recommend. I'm quite active in there as well. So the Supercoach, not the Supercoach, the Game Day Squad Discord, and then in the kind of NBL section there's a lot of great guys and girls that are in there talking about the NBL and kind of giving advice and things like that. So yeah, it's been a good podcast.
Another great shout out, mate. And as always, guys, if you are just jumping on the GDS bandwagon, make sure when you do sign up to GDS NBL that you put in the code word United, UNITED. You get yourself $20 worth of free packs. We're estimating in about an hour or two, our prize packs may be coming through. So unfortunately, couldn't open them for you today, but we'll make sure we let you know how we go either in the next video, or I might even post mine on X when the time comes. But thanks again, guys. As always, hopefully Verns will be back next week to share his knowledge as well. And we'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye.